Hello and welcome to Execute Fitness Nutrition University. And for this module, we're gonna have a look specifically for female on the during menstrual cycle. How do we relate that to training and eating? It's not going to be a super long webinar because obviously it's not about giving you an anatomical lesson, but specifically for female, which is a big part of our clientele. We need to explain a little bit the fact of the weight on the scale, and when they see themselves weighing more and they see themselves bloated on the mirror, what exactly is due to and which hormones are particularly affected on. On top here, you guys see the whole cycle, the 28-day cycle, and which particular hormone are secreted. So obviously we start the cycle with the hormones relatively low. Then as you get to menstruation, you see that obviously the follicles get bigger and bigger and bigger, and FSH, our pituitary gland, stimulate hormones such as FSH, get the estrogen to be higher, and then during the second part the estrogen gets lower, and obviously therefore the water changes, so you lose water in this particular time as the progesterone gets higher. So it's kind of like the time the body mimic the effect of being pregnant, in case that is obviously there is been ovulation and everything is taking place. So in those days, in those particular 28 days, there is different ways to do things as far as training and eating. So you particularly should obviously follow physiology as far as understanding what we do. So again, this is mostly an overview of what happened every month. And obviously human body is complicated, and for females obviously is as you guys know, even more complicated on a cellular level. Physiology is totally different for men and women, and we want to get a little bit of extra attention when prescribing things, program, and how to eat. So let's talk a little bit about puberty in male and females. Obviously there is a changing both in hormones. As you can see, the pituitary gland stimulating sex hormones in a higher quantity. You guys see it as obviously the breasts become bigger for women, and there is all this the hair starts sticking out in guys, and some women they have more hair than others. It's because obviously there is different level of testosterone and estrogen and progesterone that is being produced. So let's talk a little bit again about the menstrual cycle here, and as we go on the whole 28 days, and sometimes it's 27, sometimes it's 25, and so some people even it's typically 36. It could vary from 25 to 36 days for female when you're not regular. So what happened here in the follicular phase, FSH hormone get produced and it stimulates estrogen and to be released. And estrogen obviously takes this the body to a level to have this menstruation take place. And what it does, obviously, it does change a lot upon water water retention. Like the water that is inside and outside the cells. Obviously, a lot of cells dies because you get menstruation, so a lot of water gets released from the inner side of the cell to the outer side of the cell. So we get a lot of water retention, and that's pretty much lasting up to 14, maybe 7-8 days, and then like you get as you can see here, the uterus starts building up again, and then you get ovulation, and here is when it's basically the estrogen start going down and get the luteal phase gets produced, LH, luteinized hormone get produced, and that's help get progesterone, which in case obviously if there has been any kind of sex activity here, this is the time when it's ready to the ovule get the corpus luteus here, that is what is left, gets ready to be obviously conceived and be pregnant. So here there is in this particular time here where the estrogen is higher, there is a high water and very more susceptibility of mood changing and all these problems. And obviously also you get girls get a lot more irritated and crave sugary food, and it's kind of like the time that is more sensible to the diet itself. So maybe this is the time, as we're gonna reinforce in the future, I mean the rest of the webinar, this is the time you want to put most of the strength training activity. As we go up here, it's easier for most females to control their hunger, cravings, and energy levels. So you might want to take the carbohydrates down in this moment and then concentrate more on activities such as high intense interval training, HIIT, or some kind of intense cardio or more volume itself. Again, as we saw before, the hormone looks like that. Estrogen is higher almost during ovulation, then start going down. The ovary is obviously producing and encourage the egg to mature during the whole cycle. The whole bloating that you guys see on the mirror, at sometimes you see 3 or 4 pounds different during the beginning to the end of the cycle. It is not, and again I repeat, it is not fat. It's mostly water, also because it's very hard to get 2 pounds of fat, especially if you go into a hypocaloric diet within the lifespan of a 2 to 4 day period. So it's important to understand that's what happened during this particular time of the month. As you can see here, the ovarian cycle, they grow up the 30 follicles, each contain an egg. If you want to go a little bit deep on the anatomy here, one of these follicles grows and doing so behind to produce estrogen, stimulating the luteinizing hormone. As we can see here, what happened to the follicle. The first, as you obviously start building up the follicle, then there is ovulation, and then this is obviously it pops, and here the remainder gets obviously gets left over. The pituitary gland, the pituitary hormone cycle is obviously with a spike of LH kickstarts the ovulation phase, which is dominant follicle rupture to the eggs that is released. At this time we see an increase in follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, as I said before. So as I said before, the luteinizing hormone here and the FSH down there. Here you see the whole cycle and what happened basically hormone-wise. Here we have like the most part of water retention here. As we got here, we are able to get less sensitive to the diet, obviously. Talk about the missed menstrual cycle. It could be in 4 different stages or in 4 different types. Primary, the classic, when obviously there is maybe there is not been here is not been an ovulation. There is a dietary amenorrhea, which is like to stress. There is the hypothalamic amenorrhea, which it could be again due to misproduction of some hormones. And this is 4 different stages, and obviously we're not going to go into the deep of that, but just know that obviously not every time that you miss the cycle is due to the fact that you guys are pregnant, but it could be for a dieting, too much stress on the program, too much stress on the diet, or also both, obviously. Here there is some side effect of menopause. You guys can stop the video here if you want and just look over, and obviously there is interesting to know there is bloating, weight gain, loss of bone, all these things come in different stages, in different ages for different women, but it's something that you want to obviously pay attention to. So let's talk about the birth control, some stuff that it does. As far as estrogen wise, it decreases appetite and food intake. It decreases body weights and promotes glutofemoral distribution of fat. And progesterone wise, that particular hormone increased appetite and food intake in absence to the estrogen, increased body weight and in the presence of estrogen. Progestin stimulates appetite of food intake, induce weight gain, and obviously then the testosterone on the other side increases appetite and food intake by the central mechanism that promotes binge eating and accumulation of fat. So as we see here, with production or misproduction of obviously birth control is what is mimicking your body to not be pregnant. There is going to be different production, different hormones, and that is going to go deeper and deeper and into sometimes changing your weight. And again, should you see 2, 3, 4 extra pound, it could be for a birth control problem that is not ideally for you. And in this case, when you put chemistry in there, there could be 3 to 4 extra pound of fat and water or both together. So obviously it's something that you guys need to take pay attention to. So as far as we're gonna break up the menstrual cycle in two here, as far as changing the hormone patterns and for us to be able to deal with the cravings. During the follicular phase, the cravings are higher and the body burns more glucose for energy that is supported to obviously to produce this follicle. So this is the time again I would completely cut off cardio. I would put energy on resistance training, maybe not even too many sets, not too much volume, but a lot of you can put more extra serving of carbohydrates in there and maybe raise a little bit the intake, calorie intake at that time. During the luteal phase, from the ovulation, the second period, like the second 14 days of the month, you want to usually craving reduce, so you want to pay attention not to put extra energy, so you want to mimic your physiology, so you don't want to eat extra carbohydrates. If you are hypocaloric diet, higher in fat, maybe you want to reduce even fat a little bit, and then force yourself to do more cardio and do more volume. If you do high intensity interval training, you want and doing in a circuits way, you might wanna introduce some extra stations, some extra volume, some extra session that you can probably usually deal with it better. Even like regular cardio, just go for a run, for a walk. Brisk walking is something you can do better on the second part. This is when we used to talk about there was a big emphasizer of eat less and exercise less. This is the time that you want to eat less, maybe less on numbers, and then exercise less, maybe just mainly cardio, not do too much, obviously, not do too much resistance. While in the other side, exercise more, you want to exercise heavier, as you can eat more on the first 2 weeks of the period. And again, training recommendation, as we see here, include an intensity, low volume, power-based activity, mostly weights. During the luteal phase, we want to include low intensity and high intensity volume aerobically, with the emphasis on not weight bearing activity. So here I would use mostly body weights, as you can see. And again, this is not a rule for everybody. Should you have results no matter what, you can keep up with your particular routines. If you're not followed by any trainer or from us or from any professional, and you're having these problems and you see your weight changing every 2 weeks, it could be due to the fact that obviously there is a problem behind that, and it's not based on only training and nutrition, but it's also based on hormones. late luteal phase, potentially recovery from the aerobic training with some lightweight training. So at the end, by the end of the cycle, maybe the last 5 to 10 days, you can include some weight training in there. And it's important to understand here some extra information, and you should really, especially women, they should really do testing with bioelectrical impedance at one of the clinical one that you can find in most doctor offices, uh, which is tells you like pretty much the state, the cellular state. The cellular state is the the water that is going to be inside the cell, intracellular water, and then the extracellular water, which is going to be the interstitial water that is going to be between the outside the cell and to the muscle and all the other organs. Should you have this higher than it's supposed to be, the extracellular water, it's an indication of stress, is an indication of water retention, and it's the indication of the fact that you cannot have a proper weight loss or fat loss during the whole program. And that also obviously is the fact that when you see yourself starting the gym, and you see yourself sometimes bloated, or you see yourself extra with two extra pound of weight, it could be most likely it's gonna be water. But also, if you cannot regulate the water where it's supposed to be, you're gonna have a really hard time losing weight and fat where you want to lose it. So some people start the weight resistance training on the gym or with a trainer, and then they say, "Oh, I'm feeling like I'm getting fat." Reality being, they're not only particularly getting fat; it's just like a water imbalance problem, and mostly it's due to the fact that they never done anything, and they start with too many exercise. Maybe in addition to that, an exercise, a diet too strict, too hypocaloric. So it's basically exercising more and eating less will give your body too much stress, and then the body has to, like the cells has to implode, and the water goes out the cell, and then there is all these problems. So how do you fix that? First of all, get tested and see what your water level is, if it's possible. If not, just simply go by logic, and obviously if you feel like you see yourself worse on the mirror, it's probably because it is. So you just want to, if you train 5 times a week, maybe reduce the training to 4 times or 3 times a week. If it's too much, too intense of weight training, maybe you put some cardio in there. You take off, or you take off some cardio and you put so much in interval training or weight training in there. The rules itself is usually at least 2 to 3 times a week. Weight training is something that you must do, because to have the cellular level at least on a state that is going to burn more glucose, so also in a good cellular level, good lean mass. If you want to put some cardio in there, I wouldn't stress too much with the classes. I would put some cardio work on the side, and up to 4, maybe 4 to 5, maximum 5 times a week. That's way almost for most people too much. If you were training 2, maybe you can go to 5. If you were training 0, you better to start with 2 or 3. Women physiology is very, very complex. Guys are like very much easier to lose weight and to get a perfect body composition than women. So you guys really need to pay attention to your hormones as well. So as we can see the summary here, we saw how the cycle works, and how now you probably have a little bit more knowledge about what not to do, especially what not to do during the cycle. And should you wake up every time and measure, your temperature and see if you're ovulating or if you're which stage you're at, and then do the training based on that? No, not really, but just pay attention to the feedback the body gives you. And should you see 2 extra pound on the scale or on the mirror a little bit more bloated during some time, just try to remember what day is for you. And if it's a case, obviously you can always reach out to us and ask us for more specific information. I could do a webinar just for the cycle itself, explaining the anatomy, but it's never the purpose here. We want to make your life a little easier and less stressful than it is. So if you have any question, hit me up. Subscribe to the channel, give us like, please share this content if it's useful to you, because this is the only way that really we can touch more people and we can get be helpful to the community. Take care and wish an amazing day.